Oh, good evening. Excuse me. Good evening, fellow Texians. It's me, Daniel Miller, and it is time for our midweek break for a cup of coffee together and a little bit of decompress and an opportunity for us to discuss much of what's on your mind. Right, man. It's been a bit of a week, so it's going to be a bit of a decompress. I hope you guys are properly caffeinated or well on your way to being so, because there's going to be a lot tonight. So let me welcome all of the new folks on there that are with us tonight. Man, can you tell? I actually just don't even know where to start. I mean, I guess I should just start at the beginning, right? Man, oh man, what a day. Okay, so apparently the sound's a bit quiet. So you guys let me know if we get the sound issues worked out or whatever. Okay, well, look, let's get started, right? I got my coffee. We'll get the housekeeping out of the way, and then we'll just start talking because I know what many of you want to talk about tonight. You guys have already been sending questions in to it's there on the bottom of the screen. Coffee talk at vtnm.org. Plus, I see you guys fired up chat. Hey, wherever you're watching this, be sure to like, share, comment, do all that kind of stuff, and we will we'll get down to the brass tacks because I got to lead off with social media, right? So normally this is the part where I would tell you if you're watching on YouTube, be sure to like and subscribe and hit the notification bell. And then I would get to this part that would say, and if you are participating in chat on either of the YouTube channels, if you're on the TNM YouTube channel, Super Chat is active and we appreciate your contributions. Well, guess what? As of today, that's not an option for you because YouTube picked today of all days to demonetize the TNM's YouTube channel, right? So there's a bit of banter back and forth with those guys, trying to get to the bottom of it, trying to force them to tell us specifically what's happening there. But probably the best news of all is that spent the evening, Saturday evening, hanging out with the team from Rumble. So guess what that means? Means that we will be making a transition quite soon and also broadcasting on Rumble. So get ready for that. So anyway, I would tell you to super chat, but since I can't do that, we will just go ahead and smack them upside the head. If you'd like to make a contribution to the TNM, then head over to tnm.me/catalyst or hit the donation button on the TNM website at tnm.me. I didn't like giving them a cut of your contributions anyway. So adios, right? We'll have more on that as it develops, of course. If you're watching on either of the Facebook pages, be sure to like, comment, and share so we can beat the algorithm. And of course, if you're watching on a Roku channel or in the TNM app, thank you very much for that. We're gonna be broadening the horizons on our streaming options, and looking forward to the changes that we're getting ready to make over here. Wow, what a week. Okay. So let's just get kicked off. Let's talk about the thing that people want to talk about. So many of you know we talked about this, I think, last Wednesday. We were made the trip out to CPAC in Dallas because our good friend and one of the guys who does some work for the TNM, Josh Delano, got some media booked out there. And of course, our PR person, Sharon, was going to go out there and work Media Row and basically let's talk Texas independence, right? And so we hit town, and right out of the gate, we got some great interviews. Right, we had one from Right America Media, which we have the full version of that, and with a young host named Savannah over there, which she did a phenomenal job. Had a lot of great questions. Very excited to get that posted where everyone could see it, and then of course, our good friends over at Real America's Voice, people that I have interviewed with on multiple occasions, David Brody, Anna Perez, you know those guys. Steve Gruber was there, but Anna and David, Anna was helping co-host David's show, and of course they were remote in the studio, but they had a big setup, and we'll get pictures of it posted and everything else. But so we sit down to do this interview, and I say sit down. They had me standing at a table, but as I was standing there, they kick off the interview, and they kick off with a clip of an interview that they had done with Steve Bannon the day before. You guys know who Steve Bannon is? If you don't, go look him up. But they had a clip from an interview they did. And so as I'm standing at the table, in ear, watching the monitor, they start playing this clip of Steve Bannon.
Steve Bannon, take it away.
In case you missed, here you go.
Why will we even talk about succession when we control the country? What we have to do is turn that into political control. And we're right on the cusp of it. Any person in MAGA that ever mentions succession as any more than a left-wing fever swamp dream of what they want to do in Silicon Valley is hurting our movement. I am adamantly opposed to any discussion of it. We're not going to break this country up. The states are not going to secede. We fought that war 160 years ago. We're never going back. This is the United States. We have 12 or 13 generations of patriots that bequeathed this nation to us. And for people who are sitting there and whining, well, this is so bad, they control this. Hey, screw you. We're going to get to work. We're going to take this country back, and we're going to keep this country united like every patriot and every patriot's grave in the 13 or 12 generations that handed this country to us. Steve.
Yikes. So I'm watching this, listening to it, and the more, first I'd heard it. I mean, it was the more I saw of it, the madder I got, right? So if you haven't seen it already, here is my response.
I have a few ideas about it, but at the same time, I'd rather hear from Daniel Miller.
Yeah, Daniel.
Daniel Miller with the Texas Nationalist movement.
He's also the author of Texit.
You got that in because you love that book.
I love that book. I have the book, Daniel. I'm reading it. Daniel joins us now. Great to have you here, Daniel.
Hey, thanks for having me. And as you might imagine, I have a decidedly different opinion than what you just heard.
Well, talk to us about that. And how do you see Texas as it relates to the rest of the country? And because you studied this, obviously.
Look, here's the biggest challenge that I think people have is that they muddy the water between what we know and believe America is and has been and what the United States of America through the federal government has become, right? America is the principles under which this union was founded. And I find it very difficult for anyone to try to make a case that the federal government or the federal system is, number one, fixable, and number two, not so far removed from the principles under which the union was founded, that we all, every single solitary state, should be asking ourselves, look, we can get along, we can be friends, but why in the world should we continue to have this ridiculous Punch and Judy show in the Washington District of Criminals and be forced to be in a political and economic union when it is overrun by neo-Marxists and 2.5 million unelected bureaucrats, 90% of which fund the Democrat Party and the neo-Marxist progressives. So this is a conversation that every state should be having. We should all be asking ourselves this question right now, is that if we want to preserve the principles under which this union was purportedly founded, if we can continue to do so by being locked in a political and economic union that is only working to destroy our liberty and our independence.
So Daniel, let me ask you this. So you obviously disagree with Bannon, but Bannon's contention is that why give up everything that this country stands for and has worked tirelessly for, the patriots in this country, and that we have the numbers in this country on the ground. We really do. It's just a matter of not just winning the argument, but mobilizing everybody. So what about that argument, in essence, is what he's saying?
Well, again, I mean, it goes back to what I said a moment ago. And while we may have the votes, we are in a system right now that has effectively had the power of the people usurped by the federal system and the federal government. I mean, you go back and you look at just simply the contribution history into political campaigns by the civil servant class on the federal side. 2.5 million unelected bureaucrats get paid with our tax money to suppress us and to destroy our rights. And so we may have the votes, right? We may have the votes on a state-by-state basis. But at the end of the day, everyone needs to ask themselves these questions. What is America? And if America is indeed the principles under which we were founded, then the question that we need to ask ourselves is this, is that if our states were already self-governing independent nations as envisioned by the people who founded them, and we were being asked to vote to join the Union today, knowing everything we know about the federal system, would we vote to join the Union? And the answer has got to be an unequivocal no.
Yeah, Daniel, you've of course come on my show and you've made this argument too, but I'm curious, so you're not just arguing for Texas to secede, but other states as well, because I know you've pointed out in the past that it's in Texas's constitution where it gives the state the permission to sort of secede from the Union. That's where it gives, or I shouldn't say permission, the power to secede. But how does that compare to other state constitutions? Because that may not be the same, I assume, across the board.
Well, it was interesting to hear Carrie Lake a moment ago mention Article 1, Section 10 of the U.S. Constitution to talk about the Declaration of Invasion, which is something the states can do to push back against the Biden border policies. And let's be honest, it's not just the Biden border policies. This border crisis goes back for many, many, many years and through many administrations, right? But Article 1, Section 10 of the United States Constitution is absolutely silent on the issue. And it lists everything that states are forbidden from doing. Removing ourselves and reasserting our status as an independent nation is not in that list. So you go then to look at the states, and what that means for us via the 10th Amendment is every state has the absolute right to put the question of their government, of their governance in front of the people. Now, Texas, it's much easier for us. Article 1, Section 2 of the Texas Constitution says that all political power is inherent in the people, and the people have at all times the inalienable right to alter, reform, or abolish their government in such manner as they may think expedient. But if it's an inalienable right, it doesn't just exist for Texans. It's an inalienable right, that right of self-government that exists for everyone and is purely Jeffersonian.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting argument. In fact, I would love to see you debate with Steve Bannon. That would be such an intellectual argument, and I think that would be fantastic. So please try to get on his show, because that would be amazing, I think. Very
I'd pay for
interesting.
it.
I would. Thank you so much, Daniel. I really appreciate you being here.
Hey, thank you both, and it's great to be here with you.
Yeah, so you heard they wanted a debate. Now behind the scenes, here's what was going on. As they were playing the Steve Bannon clip, Bannon walks into the booth and goes to the production table and sits down right behind the camera as they were playing the clip of him trash talking Texiteers. So I'm listening to this and I'm watching it and I'm seeing him, and he goes and plops down right behind the camera. And so as I am responding to their questions, I'm really responding directly to him. Now, not that he could hear, right? Because it was pretty loud in there. However, when it was all over with, Kara and I made our way over there, and I talked to Steve and I tell you, let me not spoil it, because I actually tell this story a little bit. I'll go ahead and spoil it. Why not? Let's just go ahead and tell you. So, we talked to him. I said, I just got done with an interview, and Anna and David said they would like for you and I to, since they interviewed you on the secession issue yesterday, they want to see you and I together on camera having a debate about this issue. And he said, "You're not one of those secession guys, are you?" And I said, "Well, no, I am the secession guy, and let's have the discussion." Well, I'm from Virginia, so we can do that. It's like, set it up. So call me. We're going to try to make that happen, right? However, it was not enough, because you remember, went through, talked about doing a lot of media interviews at CPAC, and there were several. Did some with Free Space Media, Americano Media. I mean, there were several, and as those get released, we'll publish those, right? We'll get them posted or share a link so you guys can see them. But it was pretty much a lot of the same questions, right? And let me tell you, there were a lot of people there at this event that were extremely excited about what we're doing here in Texas with Texas independence. So, man, it was a bit of an aberration. Okay. But we had the news break of the FBI raid at Mar-a-Lago, and then we'll talk about that here in a moment as well because we released a statement on that. But I want to continue down this trajectory. So we get an invitation for an interview today. David Brody wants me back on for a much or a longer segment to really kind of deep dive into it. And so that's posted. If you head over to Real America's Voice website, it's there. We'll get the full interview up on our website as well. But at the end of it, and I got to tell you, David's really open-minded about this. Anna is really open-minded about this. Pretty much everyone we've spoken with over there, Bannon's comments have been a bit of an aberration. But at the tail end of it, David played Bannon's comments again. And I will tell you that the feedback that I have gotten from people about what Bannon said has primarily centered around him. Even people that, they know who he is, they respect him, they're supporters of his. They're furious because he lumped Texiteers in with, a bunch of progressive leftist Marxists, that whole 9 yards. And our people know that they're not that. They just love Texas and they love freedom and they love their rights and they want to see Texas as a free, independent, self-governing nation, right? And so we expect the slurs, right, from the other side. And so it's a bit shocking for some of them to hear it from someone that they respect, to hear that same kind of rhetoric. So when it came up again, I've literally been days and days of hearing our people just absolutely furious over this. It came up again. And David played the clip again. And here was my response this time.
Well, Daniel, you've heard that before. Has the ball been moved forward at all? Have you had any contact with Steve Bannon about this?
Yeah, literally when we did the interview the other day and you guys played the clip, it was the first time I'd seen it. And Steve walked into production and was sitting right behind the camera when I was actually answering that very same question. But Steve, so when it was over with, I spoke with Steve and, he said, "You're not one of those secession guys, are you?" And I said, "No, I'm the secession guy." I generously offered to come onto his show, to have a conversation, to have a debate. He said that he would be willing to do it. And look, this is the dialogue. I will tell you that the most reaction that I've gotten from people has been their utter disgust at being referred to as leftists by Steve. People that greatly respect Steve, but also understand the necessity for states to be having this conversation and for Texas to leave. And when Steve gets on there in his interview, and I understand kind of the point that he's coming from, but he's effectively echoing the same policy towards self-determination that's being promulgated by the Communist Chinese Party. And so people understand that there is a disconnect there. Uh-oh. If we believe what we believe, if we believe in these principles of sovereignty and independence and these things that we have thought of as America, that people have fought and died to protect,
right,
then we can no longer be yoked to a federal government in a post-constitutional United States that wants to do things like we saw at Mar-a-Lago the other night, or any host of things that have happened over the decades.
Daniel Miller, great to have you on the show. You just put Steve Bannon and the CCP in the same sentence, and not in a good way, by the way. But that's okay.
He even gave me a bless your heart afterwards. So I don't know if he meant it in the Texas sense of bless your heart, but look, sometimes you got to call it like it is. And of course, when that happened, when that was said in the interview, I had a ton of people reach out agreeing with it because they understand what China's position is on self-determination. But some people who are a bit ignorant of the situation said, "Hey, you can't say that. You can't say that. That's not true." Really? It's not? The position that we can't even have the conversation, right? That we can't do it, that it's impossible. that the federal government will crush people. Well, let me tell you who that sounds a lot like.
Still support the One China policy. We go there to acknowledge the status quo is what our policy is. There was nothing disruptive about that. It was only about saying China is one of the freest societies in the world. Don't take it from me. That's from.
Wow. Little Drinky McDrinkerson there, right? China's one of the freest societies in the world, but you heard her talk about the One China policy. China literally has anti-secession laws on the books, right? The world cried out when they implemented their new national security rules or their new national security laws related to Hong Kong that said that it was a national security crime to even talk about the concept of independence, right? That's the One China policy. And so when people are saying, well, we can't have that dialogue, it can never happen. We fought a war and all this other, all this other craziness. That's effectively China's policy. I mean, look at this. Here's Xi Jinping. He says, we will never allow any person, any group, any political party at any time in any way to split from China any part of its territory. Well, you know what that is? That is the antithesis of the spirit in which the Declaration of Independence was written, both for the colonies and for Texas. It is about one of the most anti-Jeffersonian things that you could ever say, right? And look, if you want to go further and you want me to make the connection here, the linkage, here's this. And don't think that China is not using this absolute union, perpetual union business to club the federal government over the head. Because here it is, as the propaganda related to Taiwan spins up from the CCP, this is what you get. Here's the Global Times, the headline: secessionists must not spoil the word peace. By the way, this is this outlet. I can't call it a news outlet. It's a propaganda outlet. It's a propaganda arm of the communist government in China. But look at what it says. The U.S. Pledge of Allegiance is only a few lines of vow, but indivisible is well marked. I mean, you literally have the communist Chinese beating the U.S. over the head with the Pledge of Allegiance. Well, boy, isn't that a turnabout? Because normally we're the ones that are trying to beat over the head with the Pledge of Allegiance, which, by the way, I cover quite well in the Texas book. But it says the American Civil War was essentially a war against secession. Now, wait a minute. That's not what they're teaching in the schoolhouse, right? And then the U.S. and then U.S. government, means the then U.S. government, warned the U.K. not to fraternize with our domestic enemy, whether officially or unofficially, or risk an Anglo-American war. They were telling the UK to butt out. So just so you understand that these are the things, that the conversations that are happening, that the United States has effectively painted itself into a corner by saying Taiwan somewhat deserves independence. But it's not, it's good everywhere across the sea, just not here, right? Here's the Chinese ambassador once asked the U.S. if an American state were to secede from the U.S. and declare independence, then some other nation provided weapons and political support for that state, would the U.S. government or the American people allow this to happen? Any sovereign nation would not hesitate to act when faced with a threat of territorial secession. Now, the reason I show this is not to talk about Taiwan policy, right? It's not about discussing the situation around Taiwan. But it is to effectively make that linkage to say that when people tell us, well, you can't leave, the Civil War settled that, it's unconstitutional, it's against the law, it's none of those things, right? When they say that, they are effectively parroting the policy, the One China policy, or at least the spirit of the One China policy of the Communist Chinese Party. So, if we want to be true to ourselves and say that we stand on principles of freedom and liberty and independence and consent, government by consent of the governed. Pretty much everything in Article 1, Section 2 of the Texas Constitution, that all political powers inherent in the people, and the people have at all times the inalienable right to alter, reform, or abolish their government in such manner as they may think expedient. If we believe those words, then what Steve Bannon says cannot be correct. It cannot be morally right, and it cannot be justified. Now, maybe he is making a political expression. Maybe what he's saying is aspirational. Maybe he's saying, man, I wish it didn't have to be this way. But if that's what you're trying to say, that is what you should say, rather than saying that supporters of Texas or people that are even having the conversation, what did he say? Screw you, right? Say what you mean. But if that's what you mean, then say that. But you see, all of this can be hashed out. All of this could be hashed out in one conversation as what everyone is wanting to see. They want to see a discussion / debate between Steve Bannon and myself over the issue of independence, whether we should even be having this conversation, whether or not his position is fundamentally identical to the Communist Chinese Party on the issue. Okay? So this is the way that it has gone today. It's been quite interesting. And of course, imagine for a moment today's interview coming on the heels of what transpired over the last 48 hours, right? Before I get to that, I do want to make a quick acknowledgement there. When I guess it was Tuesday, right? Yesterday. Wow. Man, time flies. I got to speak to the executive council in Houston, and Clyde Bryan over there arranged it, and got to speak to a phenomenal group of people about the Texas issue. And I just want to take this opportunity to thank them profusely for their hospitality and the invitation to come over there and speak. Had a great time, and just can't thank them enough for just how welcoming they were. But it is just proof positive that the Texas message is out there. The people are talking about it. If the planks in the party platform didn't convince you, or the 66% didn't convince you, or the fact that we are able to go in and make this argument about Texas to everybody and their dog, and the opposition is left with nothing, they've got nothing they can fight back against, then nothing will convince you. Nothing. There's nothing that can convince you if that doesn't do it, right? So, we had the news before that broke of the raid at Mar-a-Lago, and of course we issued a statement. You can view that statement on our website at tnm.me. But I will tell you, rather than just discussing the statement and kind of rehashing that, I want people to understand something. Since August 24th, 1996, I have worked my butt off to get us free and independent so we didn't have to endure these things, right? So this kind of nonsense that we're having to see right now would not happen. And yet here we are. Every day we continue to stay in the union. Every day the people do not stand up and do everything they can to go down this path to get and win Texas is another day that the noose tightens around our necks. And so many of you, I don't know necessarily people on here, but many Texans woke up to the realization that all of a sudden that the federal government is perfectly willing to use the wheels of justice, whether it's the Department of Justice or the Internal Revenue Service or whoever it is, as a political instrument, right? An instrument of political change. This was not news. This should not have been news. We've shouted it from the mountaintops forever. And I can't help it if some people have walked around with their fingers in their ears for years and years and years going, all is well. We're one election away from fixing all of this crap. I can't help that. But here we are, right? And what that does is that actually brings me to my first question tonight that I'm taking. This one is from one of our local coordinators, John. It came in via email, and he says, "Hey Daniel, how would you address people that are growing restless and or weary in light of this week's recent events? Those saying we are not doing enough fast enough and are running out of time." I don't know who those people are, right? I don't, John. I appreciate the question, but those people that are growing restless and weary, put in the work. Right? You got here late. You have a lot of catching up to do. I say this all the time, and hopefully now some people will get it. You better start acting like you're the third monkey on the ramp to Noah's Ark and the rain has started. I mean, you better get in the game. You know, I know guys like John, we've got leadership, we got people working their butts off, but I'm going to tell you, there's some armchair quarterbacks out there right now, right? People that came in, got their feelings hurt, or man, this work is just too hard. So I'm just going to go quit and do nothing. I'm going to go on vacation. I'm going to let you guys go do all the work and I'll go reap the benefits. And then if it doesn't come to me fast enough, I'll complain. You sound like a Bernie Sanders voter, right? You want the result without the work. It says all political power is inherent in the people. That's all of us. Any of us that want to see Texas happen, the more people that get to work, the sooner that it happens. I cannot drill that into heads hard enough or often enough. The more hands, the lighter the work. The more people, the more work, the sooner it gets done. I cannot break it down any more than that. The only thing I could do is put up a whiteboard here and draw it out like a football play. So you guys can see. And honestly, it would be this. It would be a bunch of circles and an arrow straight ahead for every one of them. That's what it would look like, right? So, you know, the bottom line for me is if you're new to the movement, then you've got to plug in, right? If all you're going to do is vote yes when the time comes, we need that. But if you want to even have an opportunity to do that, we need people to help put in the work. And that's just the bottom line. Guys, you know, I'm never going to pull punches with you. I don't sugarcoat things. I tell it like it is. And I always will. And I will never back down on the things that are right. And anyone who is out there belly aching because there's no shortcut is frankly about being a Bernie Sanders voter, right? There is no shortcut in this process. The only shortcut is how much effort we all put into it together. I've said it time and time again. If it were up to me, this would already be done and I would have gotten on with my life. But think about that. Since I was 22 years old, many times when almost no one else would fight for this thing, I was out there fighting for you. And I thank God every night that so many of you have awakened to the fact that the federal government is not fixable, that the only way forward is for Texas to become a self-governing independent nation. I thank God every night for you people. And for those of you that are putting in the work, that are stepping up and saying, I want to lead, like this question that came in here. Herbie sends in, can we get help organizing a T&M group in Kirk County? Absolutely. All you got to do to make that happen is go right there. Boom. tnm.me/local. We have provided the means, the mechanism, the infrastructure for anyone who wants to get involved in any way at any level whatsoever. But we don't, and that's the counterbalance, John, is when you hear people whining and belly aching, oh, it's not happening fast enough, I'm impatient. Well, you know what? Where have those people been? When the rest of us have been out here busting tail, I'm glad they're here now. But we need to see them working more than their jaws or their fingers if they're Facebook keyboard commandos. Maybe we do need them working on Facebook. Maybe that's where their thing is. But there is a path to victory. We're almost there. We're in the last mile of the marathon. We have the popular support. All we have to do is get the dadgum vote. And we don't get it with, hopes and dreams and unicorns. That's not how this works. It's not how it's worked anywhere in the world, anytime in the past. That's not how it's going to work now. There is a path forward. We just have to take it. We will show you the way. We will give you an opportunity to get in the game. But you have got to get in the game. Not you, John. I know it's not about you. It's about people that are and you're having to hear them out there bellyache. Look, here's the bottom line. We don't have to convince anybody right now. All we have to do is find the convinced. Every second that we spend with some knothead is a second that we don't spend out there connecting with somebody who has been looking for this their entire lives. Those are the people that we connect with. Those are the people that we get, because the time is short. The Mar-a-Lago raid didn't prove anything to me. I literally wrote about it in this book, that every single solitary day, by the studies have shown that every person who is drawing breath commits probably around about 3 federal crimes that could draw felony terms, right? That's not my statistics. That's from another study that was done. But this is what happens. We watch the Tea Party organizations get persecuted by the DOJ and the IRS during the Obama administration. And before that, it was, other things. I mean, it just goes all the way back. This is nothing new. To quote Thomas Jefferson, it is a long train of abuses and usurpations that is only exacerbated by people who allow it to happen, who let their anger and their disgust rise up and fizzle out like fireworks on Hot Dog Day, or as, it used to be called Independence Day, right? If you want to win and you want to see the principles of freedom and independence preserved, then you know what you got to do. You got to get in here, you got to get stuck in, and you got to get to work. And you know what? It's not hard if enough of us do it. It's super hard if only a handful of us are pushing a wet rope, right? But the rest of us, get in the game and help out. So, John, thank you for the question. Herb, thank you for the question. Can you guys tell I'm a little bit wound up tonight? Maybe I don't need coffee. Who am I kidding? I would drink anyway. Well, I'll tell you what, let's get to some of your questions. Wow, man, you guys have not been particularly questioning tonight. Is it because I'm soapboxing? Is that what's happening? Okay. And I love this. This is how you know when things are going. The trolls are out. Before I get to that, before I get to the trolls, this will be fun. Let's look at this one here. Dan, there we go. Dan, hey, Texas supporter from New Jersey checking in. Hey, Dan, thank you for checking in. Okay, Bad Brad is asking, what are the steps that TNM has to do to be able to call a special session and make it so we can vote for Texas in November 2022? Well, that's not possible. We've explained this many, many times, especially around the COVID lockdowns, right? When all that was going on, everybody's like, how do we call a special session? Well, we don't call a special session. Only the governor can call a special session. Only the governor. So one of the things that we have talked about time and time again is how elections have consequences, right? Elections have consequences. So who is your governor right now? That would be Governor Greg Abbott. He is the only one who can call a special session. There is no legal, constitutional, statutory means to force the governor to call a special session or for us to do it. What does it take? It takes pressure. That's what it takes. It takes pressure and numbers. That's what it takes. Or it takes knocking them out of the box during the elections. That's your options. short of a constitutional amendment that changes the way that special sessions are handled, that is the way the law is. So my suggestion is, if you saw the call that I put in our statement related to the raid, then what did I say? Call on the governor to call a special session. If you believe that's what needs to happen, then you better be burning up his phone lines. You better be dropping, don't do emails. You better be burning up his phone. You better be showing up in numbers to all of his campaign events and demanding it. Bring your Text It Now signs out and say, we want it. That's what it takes. You don't get to win your independence hanging out at the house playing Netflix and chill. It's just not the way it works. You better get out there and you better fly the colors and you better get loud and you better let them know you're serious. Good news is, excuse me. The good news is that Abbott has, been pretty, he's been pretty, I'm not going to say receptive, but he has been a bit pliable to public pressure. I mean, look, he had one press conference, came up with 3 policy changes. One he stole from Don Huffines and one he stole from us from a 12-year-old news article, right? So, I mean, there's something to be said for that. All right. Oh, man, it's been a hot minute since I got one of these. Brandon says, when we get independence, will I lose my Social Security I've paid into my whole life? Brandon, thank you for that question. And because it has been a hot minute since I've gotten it, rather than go through the whole thing, what I'm going to encourage you to do is go to either pick up a copy of this book where it's discussed in depth, or go to our website. You can go to texitnow.org. Matter of fact, it's on the screen right there, texitnow.org, and get the answer to that question answered in excruciating detail. But the answer to your question is no. As policy currently is, you will not lose it. Okay, here we go. Let's take this one. This one is from, I cannot even pronounce that. Says, Dr. Steve Turley thinks secession is going to be a worldwide phenomenon. He's not wrong. I've actually been on Steve's show, I think once, and he's covered what we're doing here on more than one occasion, but it's something that we talk about all the time. One of the things that initially got me to even open my mind to the concept of Texas becoming an independent nation was that statistic. That was quoted in the book Global Paradox by John Nesbitt, when he talked about in the mid-1990s that at the end of World War II, there were roughly 54 recognized countries around the world. And by the time that book was written, there were 192. This explosion. It is, in fact, a global trend. The trend toward self-determination, autonomy, decentralization, those are global trends. Okay, so I agree with the good doctor. Oh, and we're back with the same one. Let's get rid of that. Okay. Oh, good. Here we go. Let's get to the troll. I love this one. All federal dollars would leave Texas as well. It's a pipe dream to think Texas would survive without federal dollars. Oh, man. These math challenged morons drive me absolutely nuts, right? So probably this person does not understand the concept of $103 to $160 billion annual overpayment, right? That means that we're paying more into the federal system than we're getting back in, right? So when you talk about all federal dollars would leave Texas as well, the shoe's kind of on the other foot there, Don, because that also means that Texas dollars would no longer flow into federal coffers for you to utilize for your weird social programs and experimentation. All that money stays here that we can then, we can implement our own programs in a way that suits Texans far better and still save a passel of money, right? And still be in a surplus and do things like, oh, I don't know, eliminate property tax or, I don't know, secure the border or do things that, actually address the challenges that Texas faces instead of, well, maybe for people like Don, maybe adult remedial math classes would be something that we might ought to think about. Not how it works, but if you want to understand what that looks like and understand, kind of how all of that works out, go to tnm.me/federal money, download the report, and it will tell you everything you need to know about whether or not Texas has got the money to make it. Anybody who thinks Texas does not have the wealth to make it as a self-governing independent nation just does not understand us at all, do they? Not one little bit. Okay. Let's dig off into another question. Let's take one. Let's take one from email. How about that? Bill wants to know, does Abbott now support the bill to allow a vote for Texas to be included on the ballot? I don't know if he supports it now, like this very second, but I know previously he has not expressed publicly one way or the other, while all the while behind the scenes working to make sure it didn't happen. So look, it's like another thing with the Steve Bannon deal. Greg, call me. We can get this ironed out. Right? The people of Texas need to be able to decide. Article 1, Section 2 of the Texas Constitution reserves it to us to alter, reform, or abolish our government in such manner as we may think expedient. We want to have a vote on the thing. We want to have a vote. Okay. Betty sent in an email and she said, good answers to people who like the idea but are skeptical about the state actually becoming independent. Look, this book was written for skeptics, people on the fence, as much as it was people that were already on the team, right? One of the reasons we have the texitnow.org website is so that people can go there and get their questions answered. So, Betty, if you're running into people that are skeptical about this, they have a lot of questions, send them there. Send them to the website. It is, texitnow.org has got about the 100 most asked questions answered in excruciating detail. So have them go check it out. Okay. Here's one from Yona. I like this one. What do you say to people who think that we need to have a new constitution, Bill of Rights, etc., before we secede? I say that that's not necessarily how it works at all. If we were starting from scratch, for example, if we were breaking away from a solitary landmass and did not already have a governing document, then that might be a discussion that need to be had, right? You don't want to leave something and jump into a void. Well, we're not jumping into a void. We already have a constitutional republic, aka we have a constitution, we have a 3-branch government, we have elections, we have laws, we have agencies, we have all of these things. What we don't have is our independence, right? So we don't need new of those. I talk about post-Texas vote. Once the will of the people of Texas has been expressed, it launches a process, and there are 4 distinct phases, 4 things that have to be addressed: constitutional issues, statutory issues, international covenants, treaties, and agreements, and negotiated issues. Constitutional issues, statutory issues can be done together in special sessions, right? So if we wanted to amend the Constitution in that, it could be done. But we have a governing document already. We're not jumping into a void. So for anyone to say, well, you need to have X, Y, Z done before you leave, it's like you just don't understand the process. It's not like the day after a Texas vote, we end up in the Thunderdome fighting each other in shoulder pads and leather thongs. It's not how it works. How it works is quite simple. Day after the vote, literally nothing changes until our government here implements the results of that vote through those 4 phases. So it's just a process thing, you have to kind of educate them to the process. Some people think Texas is an act, and it is a process. And that has been one of the most difficult things to get people to understand is that, Texas is not a declaration of independence. Texas is the process that kicked off the moment we decided that we were going to push this thing all the way to the finish line, which is independence. It culminates and peaks at the vote for Texas independence when the question gets put before the people of Texas. And once the people of Texas speak on the issue, all of those things that go after serve as part of the Texas process that ends in the goal of independence. So I may need to have like a special webinar where I walk through this. If that's something you guys would be interested in, either drop me feedback at coffeetalk@dtnm.org or, sound off in chat. Let me know if that's something you would be interested in as sort of a Texas masterclass. I think maybe that would be a good thing for us. Webinar or in person, a 2-day intensive Texas masterclass. I'm your Huckleberry. All right, man. We are plowing through them tonight. Let's take a look here and see what we got via email. Okay. While it is downloading, I will remind you that we have got a ton of meetings coming up. I mean, a lot. As a matter of fact, I will be back on the road very shortly. Week. Go ahead and share that with you guys so you can see what I'm talking about, because I'm going to encourage you to get out there. Look, if you're ready to get in the game, your best starting point, obviously, is the whole go to the website, pledge your support, do all that stuff first. But your next step, like you really want to get stuck in good, is to go to one of your local group meetups, and they are forming up all over the state. Okay, so let me just share this with you. See, look at this. We have tons of events and meetings going on all over. Stuff going on tomorrow night in Sugar Land and Waco and Walmart. But we'll go down through here, and I'll tell you, I'm going to be in Harlingen on the 16th. So all of my South Texas people, be sure you turn out. Let's get down there and make Harlingen a big event for us. And then, of course, there's going to be a nice little stretch where I'm going to be headed up to Northeast Texas. I'm going to be in Avenger and Nash. And it looks like there's going to be an event in Tyler. And I think something is, it's not on the calendar yet, but I think there's something coming up right around there. So there's going to be a lot of on the road. Okay. And we're going to be coming to a community near you. And it may not be me, right? It could be one of these local meetups or one of our district directors, or just go get stuck in at one of our meetups. But at the end of the day, it's not about, just so you guys understand what to expect, it's not eat, meet, greet, retreat. It's get together, learn, plan the work, execute the work, celebrate the victory, and repeat. And that's what happens on those local groups. So you be sure that's what you're expecting, right? It's not just a chew the fat session. Okay, got a few minutes left, so let's see if I can squeeze in a couple of more questions. Here's this one. Glass Cow. That is an interesting screen name. Would people need a passport to enter Texas? Interestingly enough, that is one of the negotiated issues, right? So as we go through those 4 phases I mentioned earlier, one of those is the negotiation phase. And part of that negotiation phase would obviously be a reciprocated travel agreement. Now, before people think, oh, wait a minute, that means that, they can have border checkpoints and all this. It's like, no. That's not necessarily how it works. We've got examples of how it can work and probably will end up working around the world throughout history. You've got the Schengen zone in Europe, where essentially you have free travel between the countries, passportless travel, as long as you got your ID with you, right? Very similar situation. You actually have a situation that I cite in the book where, we have, I think it's 1 million legal border crossings between the United States and Mexico every single month. I think the stat is, with nothing more than what's called a border transit card, right? It's literally just a card, not even a passport. So these things exist, the ability to travel and set up these free travel zones, very much like free trade zones. It's not an uncommon thing around the world. And so as the ultimate goal post-Texas in the negotiation phase is to minimize disruption. It's not the main goal, but it is sort of a key goal of any negotiation and any exit is to minimize disruption, economic disruption, et cetera, then you can fully expect to see some sort of travel agreement hashed out like that. But thank you for your question, Glass Cow. That's such a wild screen name. Okay, one quickie here, and then it's going to be time to bring this baby back to the corral. Kenneth says, after Texas becomes an independent nation, how can one apply for Texas citizenship? Great question. That will, amazingly enough, be entirely up to the people of Texas, right? Not to me. It's one of the things that we are absolutely going to be the happiest about having control over. One of the major motivators from people that I talk to is actually for their Texas support is actually one of the things that is listed as the top concerns for Texas voters for well over a decade, and that's the border and immigration. And the only way we're ever going to get full control over both the border and immigration is to become a self-governing independent nation. And, as such, that gives us an opportunity to set what our immigration laws are. And Texans have been, we have not had the say that we want to, that we've wanted to on this particular issue. But Texans seem united around a couple of real key things. They want a secure border and they want a sensible immigration policy. And that's where Texas is going to wind up landing on this thing. But I think I am looking forward to post-Texit the debates on citizenship. I have made no bones about the fact that I am in favor of an Australian-style point system. I talk about it in the book, but that's my opinion. That may not be the opinion of the vast majority of Texans. You guys may hate something along the lines of an Australian-style point system, but that's going to be the fun part. We will actually have an opportunity to not only debate the issue and set the policy, but we can go to sleep at night knowing that regardless of what we set that policy as, is that some unaccountable, unelected federal judge is not going to be able to override it at the stroke of a pen. It'll be our policy crafted to meet our challenges in a way that is uniquely Texan. And to me, honestly, that is one of the best things. The fact that we don't have to worry about, this politicization of these law enforcement bureaus from Washington, D.C., that we don't have to worry about and wake up every day wondering about, which one of our rights are going to be squelched today by these 2.5 million unelected bureaucrats. That is the thing. We can be outraged all we want about what's happening, but it's not enough to be outraged. You can be that person sitting there shaking your fist at the TV. The question is, what are you going to do about it? And if your answer is, well, I'm going to vote harder to fix the federal system, I'm here to tell you it's not going to work. It hasn't worked, and it never will work because the federal system is irreparably broken. And so your choice is to ball up and tolerate a post-constitutional union that seeks to destroy what it is that makes Texas, Texas, to indoctrinate your children into values and beliefs that you do not believe in, to effectively erase our border with a foreign country because they detest the idea of a nation state, right? Or your other option is to meet the challenge that has been placed before our generation, to meet the challenge that only comes around every so many generations, to make that turn at the fork in the road and work for Texas independence. I've said it time and time again. I believe the next 100 years of Texas history are being written right now. And how do we want to be remembered? Are we going to be remembered at all by future generations? Are we going to be the generation that lost Texas? Will Texas even be remembered? Will the principles that founded that union in the first place of those 13 colonies, those principles so beautifully expressed in the Declaration of Independence, echoed in the Texas Declaration of Independence, and so eloquently written in Article 1, Section 2, that fundamental right of self-government, of self-determination. That's really what we're fighting for. And when people say that they don't like the fact that we are cutting and running, we're not cutting and running. We're saving what is most precious to us. That is our principles, our way of life, and our future generations. And to save those things, there's not a single thing that you can accuse us of, that you can say about us, any slur, whatever it is, that will make us abrogate our duty, at least not me. And I suspect many of you on here tonight feel the same way that I do on this issue. So as we wrap up our time together, my friends, I'm going to encourage you. I'm going to encourage you to get in, because if all political power is inherent in the people, you are one of the people, and therefore the political power is in you. And without you, this doesn't happen. So I'm going to encourage you right now, if you're not already a member of the Texas Nationalist Movement, please join us, tnm.me/join. That's tnm.me/join. And of course, as I said earlier, get plugged into your local groups, right? Head over to tnm.me/local groups and connect with people in your community. And of course, if there is not one there, you will see a button there that invites you to be the leader that those people need. Additionally, if you'd like to be a volunteer, head over to tnm.me/volunteer and let's go win. And don't forget to download the TNM mobile app so we can stay in touch with one another. We've got a lot of work to do. I am so encouraged. I mean, it's easy for us to get discouraged by the news of the day. It's easy for us to look at these things and go, it's just insurmountable. But understand that so many people woke up over the last 48 hours that are going to join, that are going to help us get this thing done. And so I look at those days, like, the last 48 hours, last week, it's all the same to me. Since I was 22 years old, this has been my reality. I wake up every day, one day closer to Texas independence. And so tonight, I want to thank you for joining me for this cup of coffee, which was more talk than coffee, right? But I want to thank you for this. I have to get back to work. And so tonight, I'm going to leave you as I do every other time we're together in the middle of the week. Not with my words, but the words of Sam Houston, who said that Texas will again lift its head and stand among the nations. I believe that time is now. And the question is, will you stand with her? Good night, everyone.